G'day guys and gal. You don't have to be an expert to know that stepping into the warp without protection, raw donkey, is a bad idea. It'd be like getting dog-eared by Charlie Sheen. Even if you survived, you would be severely, irreversibly damaged. And you'd probably have AIDS. Unfortunately for humanity, their faster than light travel requires them to fly through the warp. They nearly invented a way to do it without it, but then some uppity red asshole ruined it all. To avoid the equivalent of a non-consensual Charlie Sheen, ships employ the use of Gellar Fields, which are shields that keep the warp from entering your ship and making everything weird. But what happens when the Gellar Field fails? What happens when the raw force of the warp enters your ship? Before we get started, guys and gal, you work out, you do your hair, you shave your neckbeard, all to look good. But do you take care of your skin? After getting advice 3 years ago from this 40-year-old supermodel, I started doing my own skincare routine and it's been unreal. My skin is smoother, less blotchy, holds a tan for longer, and it will look like this for decades, all because I use a skincare routine. But when I started, I had no idea what to use or how to use it or anything about it. So today I'm giving you a shortcut with the help of Geology. Geology is a product and service where you basically fill out a quick survey talking about your skin type, your skin goals and stuff like that. Then once you fill it out, it'll show you a custom skincare routine tailored to your needs. From there, with a simple click, and you'll get it delivered to your door. For example, I live in Australia, which is missing its ozone layer, so I needed a good moisturizer which doubled as a sunscreen, as well as a night repair cream so I don't dry out like an old man's sack. I got my creams and exact instructions on how to simply and easily employ my routine. I'm not taking the piss here. Skincare, especially for dudes because we don't use makeup to cover up imperfections, is very important if you want to look vibrant and healthy. Here's the best part. Geology is offering 50% off their trial skincare package. When you use my link below or type in geology.com/majorkill, that's geologie.com/majorkill. Huge cheers to Geology for sponsoring this video. Today we'll go over what happens to you and your ship when your Gellar Field fails, using in-law examples to demonstrate just how shit it truly is, even for something like a space marine. Let's get into it. First things first, what is a Gellar Field? For the longest time, we were told that a Gellar Field was a machine tucked in the bows of a ship that projected the protective anti-Charlie Sheen field when a ship was undergoing a warp jump. For the most part, these Gellar Fields were pretty solid. Breaking through one is considered to be nearly impossible, and they rarely ever fail or malfunction. After all, billions of Imperial ships are undergoing warp jumps all the time, and I don't think people would be that keen if it was a 50-50. In recent lore, however, GW decided to go grimderp and say that Gellar Fields are actually the projection of a sleeping comatose psyker that resides in the bow of each and every ship. What? Originally, this was super stupid as Gellar Fields came before psykers were a thing, but it has recently been clarified that there used to be a lot of Gellar Field machines, but due to the decay of technology, the STC for a complete Gellar Field was lost, hence now they have to use a psyker as a battery to power a lesser and incomplete Gellar Field. Still stupid, but at least now it actually follows the timeline. It also stands to reason that some older or more valuable ships would still have a complete Gellar device. So as you can imagine, a machine that relies on a volatile comatose space wizard to function is prone to the occasional malfunction, and there are devices such as the Hades pattern rotating gravimetric harmonic disruption device that can also disrupt the field. Whoever named that was obviously taking the piss, but the point remains. The Gellar Fields can either fail due to misfortune or straight up sabotage. So what happens when the field goes kaput mid-warp jump? Well, it depends on a few things, but it's never a good time. Firstly, the warp is vast and diverse. Not every part is just this obscene hellish landscape. If your Gellar Field fails while you're traveling through the more corrupted and chaosy parts of the warp, then what comes into your ship will be chaosy and demonic. It'll also come in great number and power. However, if you're traveling through a calmer part of the warp, bad shit will still happen. Warp entities will come on board, but it won't necessarily be this insane demonic incursion. More so just a bunch of weird creepy shit that will probably end up killing everyone on board. The duration of the Gellar Field outage also has a big effect. If your Gellar Field winks out for a split second, then shit will get weird and a few entities will likely come on board, but you can genuinely survive it relatively easily. However, if your Gellar Field is out for 10 seconds, 10 minutes, or permanently, then you're gonna have a way shittier time. To add more detail, if your Gellar Field winks out momentarily, you can expect to be pretty okay. Something will feel a bit off for a second, and there might be a bit of a nasty aftertaste, but generally the humans on board will be okay. Unfortunately, that split second is enough time for a warp entity or demon to come on board. A warp entity will usually be very disorientated and will act like a wild cornered animal. There's a bit of lore where we get the POV from a warp entity's perspective as it possesses someone but is unfamiliar with how the body works, hence it crushes their possessed body through a small gap and basically turns themselves into mush. More malicious entities such as demons can be a huge pain in the ass if the ship isn't heavily defended. It'd become a lot like the Event Horizon movie as the crew need to band together to survive and prevent the demon from causing another Gellar Field malfunction, which is mostly what the demon is going to try and aim to do. If your Gellar Field is out for 10 seconds to a minute, not all hope is lost, but most of it is. If a quick wink out would be like quickly dipping your finger into boiling water, then 10 seconds would be like dipping your entire scrotum in there for an hour. That is more than enough time for multiple demons or entities to board your ship and likely fuck around with your body and soul. In those 10 seconds, most of the human crew will have begun clawing their eyes out and screaming their way into insanity. The sane survivors, which will either be trained battle psychers, blanks, space marines, tech priests, or main characters, will then have to band together and fight off the large demonic incursion that would now plague the ship. Most ships that have a significant 10-second or more Gellar Field malfunction are doomed, especially if the part of the warp where their field fails is extra hostile, as most of the crew would either be torn apart or possessed by demons. The few survivors would then need to purge the demons and possess from their ship, which by this point would be a very tainted ship. What if your Gellar Field is permanently broken, or you enter the warp without your Gellar Field on like the fucking idiot you are? Surprisingly, this isn't a 100% mortality rate. I mean, at least as long as you have your own way of not getting your soul sodomized and your ship eventually returns to real space. I say it isn't 100%, but it's still like 99.9942069%. There's a quote which says that when demons enter real space, it's like they are drowning. It's not their home and it's not pleasant for them to be here. But when a human enters the warp, it's like jumping into lava. You burn from the inside out. During the Horus Heresy, a Wordbearer ship was chasing Corvus Corax's ship. Corvus charged the Wordbearer ship, seeming like he was going to do a suicidal ram, but at the last second he warp jumped, which pulled the Wordbearer ship into the warp. For context, when ships in 40k warp jump, they basically open up a portal to the warp and go through. Hence that portal can suck in whatever is around it, not just the ship that opened it up. Hence the Wordbearer ship entered the warp without a Gellar Field, and if you thought Chaos would go easy on them because they're their servants, you would be very, very wrong. Almost instantly, the human crew started doing the whole clawing their own eyes out thing, whilst a Wordbearer Astartes looks around in horror as he realizes what just happened. The scene ends with him being scared to look down as he feels something moving around in his stomach. It's easy to assume that 30 seconds later, the entire crew, Wordbearers and all, would be very, very dead. However, on the flip side, when the Tau first experimented with warp travel, they didn't use a Gellar Field because they didn't really know what the warp was and they didn't know that it was full of evil shit. However, something very interesting happened. Firstly, the human crew did the classic eye-clawing, screaming thing as they died. However, the Tau crew members, due to their souls being so dull and small, went unnoticed by the warp entities and demons, so they were left alone. Before the ship could be torn apart, which would have killed them all anyway, a new warp entity appeared. This one looked like a blue Hindu god with a bit of Tau thrown in, which was created by the humans in the Tau Empire believing in the greater good as an entity rather than a concept. This warp entity saved the ship and it sent it back into real space, hence that's at least one documented incident of a ship with 0 Gellar Fields going in and out of the warp with most of its crew intact. I imagine a black ship full of Sisters of Silence, or just a ship with blanks on it, might be able to manage a similar feat if their Gellar Fields were to fail. A sufficient amount of willpower can also keep you alive, or at least prevent total destruction, in the event of a Gellar Field failure. A bunch of red Corsairs once entered the warp without their field on, and most of them quickly burned and died. One of them though had so much willpower that instead of dying, he was possessed by one of the demons and he became an overpowered possessed marine. Might be better off dying, but at least it's some kind of result. Gellar Fields can also partially fail, like what happened with the loyalist survivors from the Isfahan atrocity that were beelining back to Terra. Their Gellar Fields were damaged, but never truly winked out. However, due to their lowered strength, Nurgle was able to exert his influence on the ship and resurrect the various dead traders on it as Plague Marines. So whilst a damaged Gellar Field might not spawn a demon in your ballsack, it's still not very fun. So how do the other races and factions go about warp travel? Do they have Gellar Fields? What if their protection fails? Surprisingly, Chaos uses Gellar Fields the majority of time. After all, just because you now have a couple horns sprouting from your urethra doesn't mean the warp wouldn't burn your soul. The more sane a Chaos or Renegade warband is, the more well maintained their Gellar Fields will be. Many Chaos ships would use Gellar Fields on lower settings, preventing instant death, but also allowing some weird Chaos shit to happen on their journey. There are claims that the modern day super corrupted chaosy wordbearers don't even use Gellar Fields anymore, as they have such an intimate relationship with demons in the warp that they don't require them to safely travel. The Orcs have a pretty fun way of using their own version of a Gellar Field. They make their ships spiky, as dem demons can't get through a good spike. The Orcs' War, which is known to mess around with how reality and physics work, will empower these metal spikes to actually be able to repel demons. And if the demons do get through the spikes, which is, reasonably common due to the Orc War not being the most reliable thing ever, then the Orcs will have a bit of in-flight entertainment as they hack and tear their way through their unwelcome demonic invaders. As Orcs are kind of impossible to possess, they don't feel the insanity and horror that a human would. The Elder use the webway, which is protected from the warp. As such, they have no need for Gellar Fields. The Necrons use dolmen gates, which are like hacked webway gates, so they get the same protection as the Eldar, even though I doubt demons would want to try and board their ships anyway. The Tyranids have a weird ship in their fleet called a Narvral, which is able to do some wacky sci-fi stuff that launches the Tyranid fleet to their destination. It doesn't require the use of the warp, hence no Gellar Field is needed. The Tau don't do warp travel, and when they did it, it ended poorly as I mentioned above. This is a big reason as to why the Tau Empire is so small. Regardless of your race, gender, or culture, being in the warp when your Gellar Field fails is a really bad time. Like, really fucking bad. 0 out of 5 stars on TripAdvisor. In the warp, there is no hiding from Charlie Sheen. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then Patreon is the place to be. Really $1 per month give you access to a boatload of cheeky hentai. Hit the subscribe button and hit the real subscribe button for more failed content. Join the Discord for more memes and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.